Good evening, good evening, good evening. This is Carolyn Copeland Thomas, the owner of Bodacious Beauty Boutique. We are an online boutique based in Jacksonville, Florida. Listen, tonight's live is strictly about mental health. This is our beauty room chat, and we're going to talk with a licensed mental health professional on tonight. And most often, we think that mental health does not apply to us in our community or it's taboo to talk about. But I felt it very necessary for us to have a much needed conversation. And we have a woman that is most capable of delivering information that will help us and shed some light on some of the behavioral things that our teens, that our youth are going through and they're experiencing. Often we're told that it's just behavioral, but there's a root sometimes, a root cause to things that are happening with our children. And so I want to just share with you on tonight some of the information that I did in my own research. One of the things that I found is that mental health is not just an adult thing, it's also a child thing, it's also an adolescent and youth thing. Okay. We think sometimes of mental health as an adult, grown folk issue, but some of our children are struggling. And so, many disorders I learned in my research at preparing for this live states that it starts at the age of 14. 14 years old. That's you're an adolescent by this time. And that 2 out of every 10 children suffer from mental health disorders. Okay. So we're going to shed more light on that. But first, we have a very special guest tonight in the person of Charlene A. Smith. She is a licensed mental health counselor with experience working with individuals, couples, families, and groups. She works with clients from ages 7 through adulthood. That's a big range, y'all, of people in the age group. Charlene has worked in both inpatient and outpatient settings with youth and adults. She has worked closely with at-risk youth referred through the Department of Juvenile Justice to assist in detouring further delinquent behavior. Charlene has also worked with at-risk youth via statewide inpatient psychiatric programs to assist with mental health issues that make it difficult for them to thrive in the community. Um, did y'all hear what I said? Juvenile justice system, the place where all of our boys are now going and even our girls, unfortunately, because they're experiencing something. But Charlene is well versed when it comes to youth. Charlene has knowledge treating attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, also known as ADHD, anxiety, depression, aggression, anger, trauma, oppositional defiant disorder, disruptive mood dysregulation disorder, grief, adjustment disorders, post traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, relationship issues, sexuality, and divorce. Charlene is a mom. She is a woman of God. She's a mom to two beautiful children, two handsome sons. I believe they're adults. And she is a beautiful person. I've not met her in person, but we've talked on the phone. And she is a patron of Bodacious Beauty Boutique. But don't you know that God will send people to bless you And so she is going to do just that on tonight. And I introduce to some and present to others none other than Charlene A. Smith. Welcome to the beauty room.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for the time. Thank you for the space. Thank you for the platform. I
Yes,
appreciate it
thank
so much.
you. Thank you. So
You're welcome.
Charlene, tell us about your work with the youth.
I started out working in an inpatient setting, and that was with youth actually from ages 5 to 18. And it was a statewide program with youth who they deemed couldn't function in this world. So
Okay.
they lived there, they slept there, they went to school there. That was their home. The average stay was 4 to 6 months. We dealt with all kinds of issues and trying to get them ready to go back into the world and function well in the world. So that's how I started, and I'm glad for that start because it got me ready. It was a building block for everything else I would deal um, with the youth after they've been arrested. They were court ordered to get help,
Wow.
helping them so they don't go down that path. Somebody needed to just help them, just talk to them and understand what they're going through. So I've dealt a great deal. And of course, I deal with clients in the outpatient setting. Parents bring them into my office. Some children even ask their parents, I need help.
Wow.
Can you find somebody that I can talk to? I've had that to happen as well. So it's a wide range of youth that I've worked with.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a wide age group, from 5 to adults.
Mm-hmm.
That's a huge age range. And when it comes to children, what are you finding um, that their concerns are the most, or that the issues are the most? Because sometimes I think, at being a mom of two sons, right? Um, I was told, I can remember with my oldest son, I was told that there was a behavior problem always.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But he was just a talkative person. He liked to go to
It was
school,
mislabeled. Mm-hmm.
social butterfly. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
sometimes the children are mislabeled, just like
Mm-hmm.
you said. So
They
what
are.
do you see are the concerns?
Depression, anxiety, which is normally diagnosed as an adjustment disorder. And what that means is there's been some life event in this child's life that they have been incapable of bouncing back from.
Mhm.
And now they're acting out, either in their mood and their conduct, or their mood or their conduct. And what we have to do is get to the root of the issue, because
Mhm.
those symptoms is the fire. We have to figure out what ignited that fire and
Mhm.
help them deal with that. And then if we deal with that root, everything else falls off.
Yeah. My grandmother used to say, you got to get to the root of the
You got
thing.
to pluck it up from the root. That's right.
Okay.
That's right. That's right.
So how do you what symptoms would you say a child would display to suggest that there may be something happening with
Okay.
them?
Here are some things that you can look out for.
Okay.
If they're afraid of being away from their parents, and this is a change, wasn't all, this is a change for them. They have an extreme fear about certain things. They are afraid to go to school or to places where there are people. They're worried about their future or bad things happening. They have moments of sudden, unexpected, intense fear. And they usually, their heart is racing, they're sweaty, they're dizzy. They're shaky, right? Some
Mm-hmm.
other things you can look out for. They feel sad. They feel hopeless. They're easily agitated. They start becoming aggressive or violent, right?
Yes.
They don't want to engage in things that they used to like doing. They're just
Mm-hmm.
not happening anymore. There's changes in how they eat, eating more, eating less. There's changes in how they sleep, sleeping more, sleeping less, right?
Yes.
Sometimes they're sluggish and tired all the time, or they're tense and restless all the time. They have a hard time paying attention. And this is a change for them,
Mm.
right? They feel worthless,
Yes.
useless, or guilty all the time about something, and they show signs of self-harm.
Mm.
Those are some of the signs and symptoms that we can look for.
Wow.
Mhm.
So with your, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. You're fine.
With with your experience, you're well versed in um the mental health um field,
Hmm.
and you've worked with not only at risk um youth and teenagers, but you've also worked with adults as well.
Absolutely. And families.
So
Hmm.
is it much the same for a youth as the adults? The
A lot
same?
of it is. One of the major things I find with youth, he just wants somebody to listen to them.
Mm-hmm.
They want somebody to care about what they're saying.
Yes.
They want to feel that what they want, what they're thinking and feeling is important.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, as parents, as caregivers, we're too busy to give them that.
Yeah.
But we've got to find a way, because if we don't, this world accepts them with open arms. But we want to have the bigger influence on them. So that's a major thing that I'm finding. When I do teen groups, and I always ask them, can you talk with your parents? Is there any adult that you feel that you can? Most of them say they can't talk to their parents. And I say, why? They don't listen. They don't want to
Mm.
hear anything I got to say. Anytime I say something, they always lecture me. It shuts them down. So we have to figure out a better way.
And so at that point, that's when they turn to those that will. And sometimes it's not good information.
A lot of times it's not good.
Yeah.
They turn
Yeah.
to their friends who
So
listen to them.
what can parents do to ask? Because one of the things that I used to do with my boys, now grown men, was we always talked about everything,
Yeah.
right? I
Mhm.
I wanted to, I didn't have that relationship with my mother because my mother was older. So
Okay.
certain things we couldn't talk about. I
Absolutely.
couldn't talk to her about, right?
Absolutely. Hmm.
Um, and so so whatever information I got from other people, my
Hmm.
friends, my peers,
Hmm.
um, other adults, but it didn't come from it on certain subjects, okay?
Hmm.
But what I tried to do as a parent was make sure that my children felt comfortable enough and some to come and talk to me about anything.
Hmm.
And I will admit, be the first to admit, some of those conversations were like, oh goodness, okay, hold on.
Shocking.
Let me get
Shocking.
myself together so
Exactly.
I can come and answer those questions.
Hmm.
What do you say to parents, especially those that are having issues with their children and they seem to think that they're behavioral
Okay.
issues?
Here's what I here's what I've learned in my
Mhm.
experience. Here are things I know now I wish I knew when I was raising my own sons. Number one, listen. Listen with your ears and your eyes.
Mhm.
Listen to what they're saying and what they're not saying. Pay
Mhm.
attention to what they're doing and what they're not doing. Number two, let them talk. The more they talk, the more you know. Don't shut them down. Let them talk. I don't care if they're getting on your last nerve. Let them talk, because you're
Yeah.
learning about how they're thinking and what's going on in their lives.
Yes.
Pick your battles. You don't have to lecture about everything. And timing is important, right? If that child comes to you and they want to talk to you, you can ask them, do you want a response or do you need me to just listen? Because
That's
sometimes
good.
they just want to vent.
That's good.
And because we're adults, by the time that they get to sentence two, we can give them an answer, but that's not what they want. They want you to hear them out. And sometimes if we let them take that 30 minutes that they need, by the time they get to the end, they
Yeah.
get to the right answer. But it
Mm.
just takes them a minute to talk it through, and we have to be patient. Another
Wow.
thing I believe that we should do as parents that we absolutely don't do, that I don't think ever happened to me as a child, apologize when we're wrong.
Mm.
We're, look, we want them, we're teaching them to be accountable, to be responsible, but we're not modeling that.
Yes.
We don't always get it right. We didn't get a manual on each child as we had them. So
Nope.
apologize when you're wrong. Number 5, measure your words. You can't be telling little Johnny he's dumb. You never listen. You're stupid. You can't do anything right. You act just like your dad.
Wow.
Words have power. So
Yes.
instead, we have to speak life, encourage them, uplift them, affirm them. Because if you don't, their friends will.
Mm-hmm.
Their friends will. Next, keep them engaged and busy. Keep those little rascals doing something. Keep them engaged. Have family time, and I'm talking family time with no phones, no tablets, no laptop. I put no iPods, but they probably don't do that no more. I'm old. None of that stuff, right? Actually talk to them, engage with them, have dinner together, eat together. And y'all
Yes.
talk about how your day went. Talk about that movie y'all watched last night. Have fun.
Mm-hmm.
You need to listen to what they listen to,
That's good.
because what they're listening to is feeding their minds.
Wow.
And I'm going to talk to you about the teen brain in a minute, and you'll know why that's important. Look at what they watch. What's going in their eyes? What's happening? Have family meetings.
That's good.
When you have a family meeting, it needs to be a safe space, a judgment-free space, a consequence-free space. So if you have a family meeting and you say our family meeting is going to be the third Saturday of every month from 10 to 12, that
Yeah.
zone is consequence-free.
Wow.
So whatever they share with you in that zone, and when you start doing it, you'll find they start opening up more and more, because the fear factor has been taken.
Mm.
Here's a big one, really important, really important. Don't measure their world against yours. If
Expound
you
on that.
if you measure their world, our world is huge because we have a lot on our plate. Their
Wow.
world about this big. But
Wow.
anything happening in their world is big in their mind. If we measure what they're dealing with against our world, then it makes them feel small. It makes them feel not important.
Mm.
It makes them feel that what they're going through, they shouldn't feel what they feel. And now
Wow.
they're going to their friends to understand what's happening in their life. So don't measure their world against ours.
Wow.
Okay?
That's good.
Don't expect them to think like we think. And I'm going to explain that later when I talk about how the brains function. It's impossible for them to think like we think. And I can explain that further. Never be too busy to talk to them. Give them your attention. Make them feel like what they're saying at that moment is the most important thing you've heard all day. And
Wow.
they'll talk to you more and more. And here's a big one, the last one. Monitor their internet use.
Mm.
What they're looking up online, what they're saying on these social platforms, what's on TikTok, what they're looking at on TikTok. And when it comes to these games that they play, take those headphones away. Because I found out that they talk to each other through these games.
They do.
You need to know what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
You need to know what's happening. I had a child that was 9 years old, and he played the video games all the time, always had his headset on. And one day, dad, for some reason, told him to take them off. And there was an adult male talking to his child.
Oh, my
Take
goodness.
those headphones off, y'all. We need to hear what they're doing. There's no such thing as privacy for a child. When they're grown and on their own, they can have all the privacy that they want.
Yes.
But we got to be all up in their business.
Yes.
Is it okay for me to talk about the teen brain now?
Yes. Yes.
Let me enlighten you. That's the why they can't think like we think, right? The teen brain, the brain itself, is not fully developed until we're about 25 years old.
Wow.
Here's what's happening. I don't care how smart little Johnny is. I don't care what he made on his ACT, SCT, straight A student. He cannot excel in the area of judgment yet. Here's why. Adults think from the rational part of their brain. That's the judgment and reasoning center, the frontal cortex. That's what we think from. That's why we can make sound judgment, most of us, and reason, right?
I'm glad you said
Teens, teens, here's a good one. Teens think from the emotional part of their brain,
that. Mm.
which is why they can have this intensely emotional response to something. And later we go back to talk and find out why, and they can't tell you why. Here's why. Because they're feeling more than they're thinking. The rational center of their brain and the emotional center of their brain is still forming, but they don't form at the same rate.
Mm.
So they respond out of their emotions. So they are incapable of thinking like we think. Little Johnny could be 15 years old and 6'5". He still can't think. He can't reason. He doesn't have sound judgment the way we have it. And we have to stop thinking that they do.
Wow.
We have to be really, really mindful of that. Here's what parents can do. Discuss cause and effect with your child. Consequences of their actions. This equals this. What you're doing, you're helping them to link impulsive thinking with facts. You're helping to mold that brain.
Okay.
Mold that brain. Remind your teen that they're capable, they're competent. They can do this thing. It's okay. I don't expect you to get it right all the time. That's why I'm here. That's why you got mama. That's why you got daddy. That's why you got auntie and uncle and grandpa. That's why you got this village. That's why
Yeah.
we're here. We're here to help you. Be interested in the things that they're interested in. When you do that, they're more open with you. If not, their friends will do it for them.
That's so true.
And then their friend or peer group begins to have more influence over them.
Wow.
Right? And last night, God woke me up with this, because, and I don't know who needs it. Children, teenagers who are exposed to porn and they can't stop watching. This is why. Because it appeals to the emotion center of their brain. It feels good. That's why they can't stop.
Wow.
So it
That's
doesn't matter how much we
interesting.
talk, how much we rant, how much we rave. That feeling is
Mhm.
more intense than what we're saying. That's why we have to monitor what they're looking at, what they're hearing. Every every teenager that I've dealt with, and every teen group, we've talked about this. I'm like, how did y'all find out about it? My friend told me it's on Pornhub. Y'all know Pornhub free, right?
Wow.
FREE. All you do is type in those words in the web search and it pops up. And now that they've been exposed to it, they don't know how to handle it. All they know is it feels good. It
Mm.
makes me happy. It makes me feel good. It makes them release those chemicals in their body that feels good.
Mm.
That's why they can't stop. Not because they're being defiant or disobeying you. That emotional part of their brain is they feel good.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mm. Looking for love in all the wrong places.
All the wrong places.
That's what
All
that
the wrong
sounds
places.
like to me.
All the wrong places.
Wow.
Right. Hug your children more. There's a chemical called oxytocin that's released when we hug. It's that feel good chemical. It feels good.
Yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
they need. Love on them. Don't
Yeah.
yell at them and scream at them and cuss them out all the time.
Yeah.
Again, this world will embrace you with
Wow.
open arms.
Mm-mm-mm. This is good. This is good. Keep talking.
I wanted to talk about creating a safe space because a lot of people, I don't know what that means. How do I make them feel safe to open up? Got to watch your body language.
Mm,
More than 80% of communication is nonverbal anyway. Watch
mm.
your body language. Watch your facial expressions. Be careful not to over respond. You can't, that shock factor will shut them down. Getting overly emotional and crying will they won't tell you anything else because they don't want to deal with that.
Wow.
Assure them that they can talk about anything. You got to stay calm. You kind of got to suck them in. When I'm talking with teens, I'm like, girl, what? That's how we're talking. And it makes them want to share more and more. I have clients that come into my office, and my first session is always with parent and child because I can't get all the information unless I'm talking to parent and child. Parent often tell me he's not going to talk. He never talks. He's not going to tell you anything. But I never have that experience. I get them by themselves, and the floodgates open because I care about them. I care about what they're saying. It's important to me, and I make them feel that way. And
So it's
we
the
as parents, we've
approach.
got to learn how to do that. Go ahead.
So it's the approach.
Yes.
The
Yes.
approach.
And validating their feelings.
Yeah,
We
that's
can't
good.
lecture about everything.
Mm-hmm.
Validate what they're feeling. If your 16-year-old just broke up with her boyfriend and she's devastated, she done ran in the house and ran upstairs and cast herself on the bed, crying. Well, that's the emotional part of her brain responding. Validate her feelings. And let her know, baby, I know this is hard. I know you're hurting. Don't say to her, there's plenty of fish in the sea. I said helping her with what she's feeling.
Yes.
So we have to meet them where they are and validate what they're feeling. You
Yeah.
can lecture later. Like when you decide to take them out to lunch next week, slip it in then. That's how you do
Mm-hmm. Wow. That's good.
it. Yeah.
Listen, I'm all into this. This is good because, my sons are grown, but we have
Yep.
grandchildren
Yes.
and stuff. But I'm
Yes.
just like, okay, and just like you said, Charlene, I wish I would have known some of this
Then.
stuff back
Mm-hmm.
then,
Mm-hmm.
because I was my kids could talk to me about anything, but I don't have a poker face.
You showed it up. Yeah. All on your face.
It's all on my face. I don't
Yes.
have a poker face. And I would show emotion.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why would you do that? You know what I mean? So, or what do you mean? I would just get emotional about it.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that hurt
Yes.
the situation. So we
Yes.
have to be very careful
Mm-hmm.
of how we handle what they're saying, because it is difficult sometimes. It's going to
Mm-hmm.
shock you because
Yes.
this is my opinion. I feel like what we had to deal with as children, as teenagers, is a far cry from what these children deal with and experience now.
Totally agree.
Bullying did exist back then. We did, but it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't to the degree that it is now. We had peer pressure, of course, back then.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's totally different. So how things were when we grew up is greatly different than what these children have to experience
Yes,
and what
ma'am.
they go through right now.
Yes,
Do you
ma'am.
agree with that?
I do agree. We have to parent in the now
Mm-hmm.
and not in the past. I don't know about you, but when I was growing up, children were to be seen and not heard.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
We didn't ask questions. You couldn't ask why, what? You got popped. You know what I'm
That's
saying?
right.
But now that I understand how a child's brain works,
Mm-hmm.
explaining it to them is helping them link things. Is helping them to understand how to use judgment and reasoning, how to make good quality choices. That's what
Mm-hmm.
we're teaching them. Of course, there are some things where we can't go into some deep explaining because we understand danger, and they don't. They are invincible. They don't understand danger,
Yes.
but we understand danger. So what I normally tell children when I'm dealing with youth who think that parents just don't understand anything, won't let them do anything. Why can't I go out at 12 o'clock at night and you 13? Okay. What I
Mhm.
say to them, do you believe that your parents love you? The answer is always yes. Do you believe that they will never do anything to intentionally hurt you? The answer is all. I have never gotten a no. It's always been yes. Then in these cases, when you don't agree with their choices, know that they love you and they're
Yeah.
not doing anything to hurt you. You got to fall back on that because you're not going to understand everything because you haven't experienced everything they've experienced.
Right.
So that's how I do it. Mm-hmm.
That's good. And so, when do we need to seek help for our children? When do we need
When all of those signs and symptoms that I spoke of earlier,
to? Mm-hmm.
if that's happening for more than 2 weeks, get help.
Mm.
Get help. Because those same signs and symptoms occur after the child has experienced a trauma.
Mm.
They may never tell you what happened to them. They may never tell you that the teacher touched them.
My God.
They may never tell you their boyfriend just took advantage of them and raped them. But you see these behavior and mood changes, and it's lasting. If
Yes.
it lasts for more than 2 weeks, get help. Let the professional figure out what's going on, but get help.
Yes. Wow. And you said more than 2 weeks.
Yes, more than 2 weeks. If it's 2 weeks or
Mm-hmm.
more, you got to find some help. Got to find
Yes.
out what's and it's a change. They're
Mm-hmm.
change. This is a change in your child was once bubbly, laughing, always laughing with you, coming out of the room, talking to you, and suddenly they want to be in the room all the time. They don't want
Yeah.
to talk to nobody. They're not laughing. They
Yeah.
don't want to cheer anymore. It's not fun, but they
Yeah.
used to love it.
Mm-hmm.
Get that child some help so you can figure
Wow.
out what's going on.
Charlene, with everything that's going on, the children have now gone back to school.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them have lost grandparents,
Yes.
aunties, uncles,
Yes.
cousins, even friends, or parents. Um, and we have to wear masks, which is
Mm-hmm.
now the new normal.
Yep.
Then we have those persons that don't agree with them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what do you say to parents who need to have? I'm just glad that I don't have small
Small
children,
children. Mm-hmm.
because what a tough decision it is for parents to have to make the decision for your child to go to school, knowing that everything about everything that's happening with the virus and such.
Mm-hmm.
But how do you have that conversation with your child
Mm-hmm.
regarding death and what's happening to people who contract the virus
Mm-hmm.
and those types of things? Because I don't think that, I think for many people, that's a hard conversation to have.
It is.
Makes sense?
Yes, it does make sense. What we're finding now is all of your fears, your children have the same fears.
Mm,
They fear being infected. They fear losing family members and loved ones to COVID. They're confused. They're angry. The number one thing I tell parents, don't lie to them.
yes.
Don't make up stories. But you have to yourself be calm in your approach with them and reassuring, but don't lie to them. And then make sure you have coping strategies. Put all kinds of coping strategies in their toolbox. Let them know it's okay to share their thoughts and feelings. Validate what they're feeling. Give them a journal to write. Dance, listen to music, go on walks with them. Create those coping strategies to help them manage that stress because they are feeling exactly what we're feeling.
Wow. That's good.
Mhm.
That's good. Yeah, because I often hear watching the news because I work from home, of course,
Mhm.
and I often hear the conversations with the or rather the news persons speak on it's very necessary to have a these tough
It is.
conversations
It is.
with your children to prepare them
Mhm.
for what could potentially happen.
Don't lie to them. Just don't lie to them.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Don't
good.
lying to them is giving them false hope.
Mm, that's good. That's good. So what resources are out there for um children or families, children and families?
The Center of Disease Control has a lot of stuff on. I like going there because it's reliable data. So I tend to look at that. Psychology Today's website has a lot of articles, usually very researched articles that you can take a look at. Those are my main sources. When it comes to suicide, which I want to talk about a little later, I want to give
Let's
you some.
talk about
You want to talk
yes.
about that now?
Yes,
All right.
let's.
Our children are taking their own lives and at an alarming rate. Let me give you some stats. There's an average of 125 children that die per week at their own hands.
Did you say
They
per
took
week?
per week at their own hands. 1 in 11 have attempted it. I'm not done with the stats. They're staggering. Suicide is the second leading cause of death of children between the ages of 10 and 24. Second only to accidents, like car accidents, things in that nature. It's more than cancer, heart issues, AIDS, strokes, and several other things combined. There's no close third.
Wow.
No close. And it does not, there's no body that's exempt. It has no boundaries. There's no social class. There's no economic class. There's no race. No one is exempt. Every day in this nation, there's an average of 3,703 attempts by young people in age grades 9 through 12
Mm,
each day. Each day.
wow.
4 out of 5 who consider it, here's the staggering thing, they showed some sign or intention of wanting to do it, either verbally or in their actions, and missed
Mm,
it. Missed it. We're not paying attention. Here's another
wow.
staggering. Girls attempt more than 3 times than boys. Here's the staggering. They attempt. Boys succeed 4 times more often than girls.
Mm,
In the age group 10 to 21, 81% of suicides were boys. 19% were girls. African Americans have the third highest rate. We are not exempt.
I'm glad you brought that up
Mhm.
because we had a conversation. You and I spoke before we
Mhm.
got on
Mhm.
camera, and I know for a lot of us, we didn't think that that was an issue
Mhm.
in our community,
Mhm. Yep.
but we're number 3.
Third highest rate.
And so, what are they? Well, I guess I don't even know that that's a good question. My question was
What's your
going
question?
to be what's happening? Is there a reason that you're finding that this is
The primary reason is they have no coping skills.
mm,
They don't know how to use sound judgment and reason. They want those intense emotions to stop.
okay?
So all of those symptoms I shared those signs and symptoms regarding anxiety and depression, those are things that we need to actually look for. When the child is saying things like, "I'd be better off dead.
My God.
I won't be bothering you much longer.
Mm,
I hate my life."
mm.
I just want to die. And I hear this stuff. I'm in front of children who say this stuff.
Mm.
I'm going to kill myself. I just want to die. Take it seriously. Don't take it as a joke. They're serious. They're serious. Children that have made attempts in the past or have a 100 times greater risk of attempting in the first year after they've made that first attempt.
Mm.
So they keep trying. You gotta watch them. You gotta watch them. If they're preoccupied with death, like they write essays about death, they read stuff about death, they write poems about death, their artwork is dark, drawings is dark, and it's about death. The music that they listen to. Often when I deal with young people and they have ideation for suicide, plans, attempts, whatever, I always ask them, what kind of music are you listening to? And
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, I don't know, but they give it to me and I'll give them my phone, we'll look it up or on the computer. Some of that music is talking about dying by suicide. And this is what they're listening to on a daily basis.
Wow.
Keep in mind, they have a brain that's not
Yeah.
full. So that's molding their mind, right?
Mm, mm,
All of the other symptoms we talked about regarding anxiety and depression, we have to look out for that. Often when a child has decided, they've decided this is what I'm going to do, they'll start giving away their things
mm.
that they love, their favorite things, right? They'll start putting their affairs in order.
Wow.
They'll say goodbye to family members and friends. Sometimes they even make funeral arrangements because they've decided that they're going. They've decided. Some other signs that we should look out for when there's been a recent loss. Loss of a loved one, loss of a relationship, loss of a job, loss of an animal. Loss is loss, and we experience it the same way in our bodies. We
Wow.
see that they start using drugs. There's been an increased use or abuse of drugs and or alcohol. Their parents just broke up. That's traumatizing for a child,
It
right?
is.
They're feeling lonely. They're feeling abandoned. They're feeling rejected, right? They have feelings of shame and guilt. They're reckless. They start doing reckless things,
Mm.
driving real fast on the highway, right? Having sex with all kinds of people, just reckless things. They have trouble staying focused. They start getting into a lot of trouble, then they start getting arrested, getting in trouble in school, that type of thing. We need to be mindful of all of that. I wanted to dispel some myths
Okay.
that we have. One of the myths is people who talk about it won't really do it. You think that's true or false?
I think it's false
It is false.
because if they
Who
say
talk
it,
about it do it.
yeah,
They do it. Contrary
yeah,
is true. If
yeah,
a person is determined to kill him or herself, nothing is going to stop them. True or false?
true.
Nope.
False?
False. We can stop them. Get them some
How?
help. Get them some help. That's what we're
Okay.
trying to actually to stop. Talking about it may give them the idea to do it.
Mm.
False. That's not true.
Right.
It doesn't give them the idea. So we have to be mindful, and we also have to be mindful not to fall into that category of, now my child would never do that.
Yeah.
Not so. Because
Yeah.
we don't know what's going on inside of them. We
Mm-hmm.
don't know what they're thinking and feeling. Their world, even though it's about this little compared to ours, is huge in their minds. And because their brains are still forming, they don't know how to reason. They don't know how to use sound judgment. No matter how smart they are, they
Right.
still can't use sound judgment. So
Mm.
we have to be careful. We have to monitor. We have to get We have to get help, bottom line. And don't feel like you can do it. Get little Johnny some help.
Yes.
Get him some help.
And sometimes it takes an outside person
It does. It
to
does.
be able to reach them, because they're
Mhm.
not going to be judgmental. They're not going to display that emotion once
Mhm.
they hear something that they can't handle,
Mhm.
or that, is shocking.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, outside help is good. I think
Yeah,
in
you got to get
every
some help. Yep.
situation, just, sometimes if you can't resolve it yourself, then definitely get help.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Well, Charlene, this is good
Thank
because
you.
this has been awesome. I think I got about 3 pages, two
Do
pages.
you really?
I do. And, one of the things is that it's so important for us to know what we don't know. And that is that this is prevalent in our culture.
Mhm.
Um, I think for many people, I didn't know that suicide was as that we were number three.
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
know, I didn't know that, and I didn't think. You don't think that it's as prevalent as it is,
Mhm.
or that it's happening at such an alarming rate.
Yes.
Um, so this has been very informative, and certainly, I hope the biggest thing for me is I hope that someone will hear this
Yes.
and
Yes.
someone will be more apt to pay attention
Mhm.
to what's happening with their child,
Mhm.
so that they're able to gauge, okay, is he or she okay? Do I need to seek help? What do I need to do as a parent? Should I open up that dialogue, make them feel comfortable enough
To
to
talk. Mhm.
talk, you know? And prayer, I'm an advocate of prayer
Prayer
also.
changes things. Yeah.
It does, and
Mhm.
it does help. And the positive affirmations, I think, is good
Mhm.
too.
Mhm.
Because I taught my children from a young age, and I wasn't the perfect parent. But I taught them that I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me.
Amen.
And sometimes, even this one, my almost 30-year-old, he
Uh-huh.
tell me, Mom, what did you teach us?
Oh, awesome.
Okay, so he'll give it back. And I
Turning it
don't
back on you.
think I may look at him like, okay, who's the mama, who's the child? But he's right.
Right.
When you speak positive, um, you'll see better results as opposed
Absolutely.
to that other language,
Mhm.
the cussing, the name calling, and all of those things. And when you know better, you do better
Mhm.
sometimes.
Mhm.
And
Or we should do better.
or we should. We
Mhm.
should. Because sometimes we know and we just don't, because we don't want to. We want to do it our
Absolutely.
way.
Yes, ma'am.
So I totally get that. He's standing right.
Oh, is he?
He is. And he's like, you know, but Charlene, this has been awesome.
Thank you.
So what do you say to um if by chance there's a young person watching? We never know who's watching us, right? So if by chance there's a young person that's watching, what would you say to them?
That you are worthy, that your thoughts and your feelings are important,
Hmm.
that you deserve to be heard. You keep talking until somebody listens.
That's good. Keep talking until somebody listens. I think that's awesome. That's
Mhm.
great.
Mhm.
That is so great. Um, because sometimes, especially in families, it's like just, back in the day, they used to brush things under the rug
All the
and
time.
and not talk about certain things.
Hmm.
More harm than it did good.
Yes, it did. It did.
Even in from in the moment until years later, it
Hmm.
did a lot of harm as opposed to good.
Hmm.
So they kept sweeping things under the rug. We don't talk about that. What happens in our house stays in our house.
Hmm. Woo!
Okay, all of those things that they used to say back in the day, it it did more harm than good, I
It
think.
did. It did.
Hmm.
Because everything that was planted when we were children grows up in us.
Hmm.
And now they're sitting on my couch as adults. And we're
Yeah.
having to go back and deal with issues that happened when they were children.
Wow.
It grows up in us.
Wow. How important is journaling? Do you think? I know you touched on it briefly.
It's a useful tool, but it's not good for everyone.
Okay.
Um, it's an outlet. It's a way for you to get out what you're thinking and feeling.
Hmm.
Because the goal is to get it from inside of you. So you can write it, you can sing it, you can do a poem, you can do, different types of things.
Hmm.
A journal doesn't have to be written. It can be auditory. With this modern technology we have now, a lot of
Yeah.
young people, I don't want to write. Well, speak it. Do
Hmm.
an auditory journal. There are journal apps you can download on your phone and you just type your little stuff in. Some of them have codes that you can put on to actually lock them because a lot of young people are concerned about someone reading it. I
Okay.
get that. Then use that journal app that you can lock. Even if they can get into your phone, they won't be able to get into the app because it has another code on it. So I think it's a useful tool, but it's one of many.
Okay. Yeah. Um, Real quick, what is this just came back to me again. What are you hearing from the youth that you counsel
Hmm.
in general? What's the most I guess topic, if you will, or concern? I'm going to say concern that you hear from.
Concern or topic, because generally, depending upon the age group of the teenagers,
Yeah.
sex. That's all I'm
Okay.
going to talk about. Sex.
Okay.
Um, they talk sometimes about drugs, not often, but it's about dating and boys and girls. I deal with the LGBTQIA plus people as well. Just wanting love, you know, they don't get it, but we have to meet them where they are.
Mm. And I can imagine for some parents that has to be that is a very tough conversation to have.
It is.
And so at that point, then I would say that's the time to call somebody.
Get
If
some
you
help. If you can't have that conversation, if you can't do it, get some help. Get that child some help. Get you some family. You can get family counseling, the whole family. When I deal with a child, I'm always dealing with parents.
Okay.
If I can bring in the whole family unit, I'll bring in the whole unit. Because normally the child that's exhibiting the outward negative issues is just the squeaky wheel. That's
Hmm.
all. There are other issues in the home.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
we have to deal with the entire environment in order to help the child.
Yeah. Yeah. Whew, that's a lot.
It is.
But
It's a lot.
it was good. It's been good.
Thank you.
What final words do you have for us tonight?
If you didn't hear me say anything else, hear this. Listen, listen, listen with your eyes and with your ears. We've got to pay attention to what these children are doing. We've got to, because we're losing them by the
Yeah.
thousands.
Yeah.
We have to listen and we have to let them talk and we have to validate.
Yeah.
We have to, because
Mhm.
somebody else will.
And that is so true. Well, Charlene, this has been amazing.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness, like I've learned so much just from this conversation,
Yes,
and I know that someone has heard something
I hope
uh,
so. I hope
that would be beneficial to them in their situation, or that they've heard something that they can share with someone else.
so.
That was my prayer in doing this
Okay.
and having this conversation, and I am willing to bet because you were very prepared and shared some things with us that even I, as an adult, can use. Um,
Thank you.
we have one comment because
Okay.
we still have children. They're just grown,
That's true.
and so they
Absolutely.
still
That's
do
true.
things. They
And we
still
still
do
got to deal
things,
with them.
okay, and they're nonsense. Sometimes old as hair. Okay, so Donna B says, I really enjoyed this series. Very informative. You know I need glasses, right? I
I
say that
know.
all the time. Okay, I'm gonna start again. I really enjoyed this series. Very informative. Thank you for sharing.
Thank
So
you.
that's one person
You're welcome.
that
You're
made a
welcome.
comment
hmm
about it. Um, Parents need to be educated for the signs. It's
Yes,
unfortunate that in the Black community, it's not taken serious.
it's
I
not.
believe that is typically generational on how it's dealt with. And this comes from G. Denise Stone,
Okay.
one of the viewers. Not my child. Wow, we gauge our reaction by how it looks. And
hmm
she put in parentheses reputation.
That's good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So it is good. So um you touched on that. Not my child. We can never say
Never.
our children will not do when they're out of our presence.
hmm
Okay. I was never one of those parents
Me
that
either.
said that because you don't know. Now, I do know that I raised very mannerable and respectful children.
hmm
Now, if something happened to cause them to do otherwise, then somebody did something. There's a root somewhere.
Peer pressure is a beast.
Yes, it
It's a beast.
is.
Mhm.
It is. Was that the only one? Okay. Well, listen, Charlene, thank you so much
You're welcome.
for saying yes to my request. And we received confirmation. So I'm so grateful to God for him laying it on your heart as well and confirming it.
Thank you.
Yes, this has indeed been a
I
pleasure.
enjoyed it. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay. So, listen, guys, thank you so much for tuning into this live. This is our edition of Beauty Room Chat. Empowered women empower women. And Charlene gave us some tips that I know that was much needed. We needed to hear everything that she said. We can no longer think that these things don't happen in our community. The suicide, the depression, the anxiety our children experience on a daily basis, stress, from one thing or another, whether it's the stress of being African American, or whether it's the stress or of not being like the other children or having what other children have. So I hope that from this live tonight, this beauty room chat from Bodacious Beauty Boutique, that you all have heard something that you can share or that you can use even in your own home. But remember, it's important to listen. That's my biggest takeaway is listen. Listen, listen, listen. All right. So thank you for tuning in. You all have an amazing night. and a great day on tomorrow. We will be here tomorrow for our live sale at 7:30 p.m. Until next time, this is yours truly, Carolyn Copeland Thomas, the owner of Bodacious Beauty Boutique. I bid you adieu. Good night, peace and blessings, and until next time, be bold, be brave, and be bodacious.